Hey everybody, good afternoon. Welcome to the Connection Corner. I'm really excited today to be talking to Laughlin Artz from 2030 or Bust. We're going to be talking about climate change today. We were actually scheduled to do the show last week and I messed up my calendar, and he was gracious enough to offer to come back another time so that we'd have plenty of time to talk about all the things that we wanted to talk about. So thanks for joining us today. Before I bring him on, I do want to tell you a little bit about Known Co-working. It's a dynamic co-working community connect people across their fields of expertise, endeavors, and experiences. And though we started as a co-working space in downtown New Haven, and we're still the only co-working space in downtown New Haven, we moved our community to the virtual world once the quarantine hit. As a reminder, Known Co-working has hourly, daily, and monthly plans for dedicated desks and office spaces, as well as conference rooms and Zoom rooms available for rent. If you'd like to know more about the space, feel free to reach out to me. I can be reached at barb@knowncoworking.com, or you can check us out at nhvknown.com, or follow us on Instagram or Facebook, and our handle is @knowncoworking, and you can DM us there. I mentioned that we moved our community online once the pandemic hit, and as a result, we now have 3 virtual programs. On Tuesdays, we have Digital Media Sync that airs every Tuesday at 8:30. It's hosted by Julia Gambale. She is the social media maven of Agents of Branding. We also have Pivot Talk, and that's a virtual stage for businesses to share and learn as they grow. And then there's this show, Connection Corner, which is a place for dreamers, thinkers, entrepreneurs, artists, creators, educators, and community members to talk about who they are, what they do, who they serve, why, and how. And it's approximately weekly, but we're actually having 2 shows this week. I'll tell you about tomorrow's show later. If you or anyone you know would like to be a guest on any one of these shows, please reach out to me. Again, my email is barb@knowncoworking.com. And our purpose in both the physical and virtual worlds is to make connections between people. We're here to help you get connected, inspired, and known. Speaking of getting known, we have virtual networking every Monday from 4 to 5 p.m. You can find us by going to the Known website, nhvknown.com, and click on events. And if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see the image that says virtual networking, and you just click right on that. If you're on your phone, don't download the app, just click open in web. And if you're on your desktop or your laptop, it'll automatically open in web. And I host every week, and I am quite the connector. I can't think of anybody who's come to virtual networking that I haven't given at least one connection to. And you're encouraged to come and have like a nice short pitch that you can make about either your business or your service or whoever it is you're trying to find, and then, we'll make connections from there. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on Laughlin. Here we go. Hey, Laughlin, thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's just get into it. Tell us about who you are and 20 or 30 Bust and how you got started and what you do and what you think we need to know.
Okay, great. All right, so first of all, it was never my intention to get involved in the climate crisis. Let me move this hold here. Get this out of the way here.
There you go. Oh, it's back. There you go.
Well, hold on. There we go. Okay. So it was never my intention to get involved in the climate crisis. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a government official or, anything like that, right? But I have done work in the social issue arena a lot with hunger and different campaigns, different issues. And so I have a great, should I say, kind of network of, pretty heavy hitters in the matter of, things that are going on in the world. And it was about 5 years ago when I just for my own sake, and also I was doing, we had an online news service called Context News, where I said, well, we should do some pieces on climate change, and because it seems to be a issue and people are dealing with it, and as an ordinary person, just somebody in the world, the only thing I wanted to know is how long do we have until the crap hits the fan. I just wanted to know, because you hear some people, oh my God, it's already too late. You hear some people, it's, we got plenty of time. You hear some people, it isn't even happening. I mean, all over the place from what you get, right? And so I happened to get introduced to a gentleman who was Assistant Secretary General at the UN, who I was told, this is the guy that'll give you the straight deal. And when I asked him, he said, it's probably too late. And this was 5 years ago. Mm. And so one thing, it was kind of shocking to hear the fact of it. But the other part for me that hit me was, how come I didn't know that? Because I considered myself, pretty informed, even though I'm not a climate scientist. I kind of like to think that I stay up on stuff, right? And anyway, at that point, I just kind of stopped what I was doing for the most part and said, okay, I'm going to get into this deal. And where 2030 or bust came from is, what we said was that if you're on the planet, regardless of where you are, who you are, history, demographics, ethnicity, anything, you have the right to know what's actually happening in the matter of climate change, because it's your thing. I mean, you're here, right? This is our home. And if you want to do anything about ending it, you should have that chance. And that's where we started, right? And so when I started going to the conferences and, talking to other NGOs and all that kind of stuff, you didn't hear any real conversation about ending it, for one thing. There was a lot of adaptation. There was what we're going to do. There's how much progress we're making. But not like, this is where we're headed. This is where we need to be. This is the gap between those two. And here's how we're going to make it up. And that's all I thought we should be talking about. I didn't know why I didn't know that's the gap, right? Mm-hmm. And so anyway, that we got some scientists that were crazy enough to get on board with us, and a couple of the lead authors of the UNEP emissions gap report, and just some really, really great people, and said, let's put some models together that will simply and concisely let an ordinary person know, without having to go through, studies and reports and all that other kind of stuff. Let them know exactly, this is kind of the situation. This is what needs to happen. And you as an individual can make this difference in having that happen. And so that's what we did. And so what the kind of the end game is 2030, because the next 10 years is really our make it or break it deal. And, that's not meant, I'm not saying that to be an alarmist. It's just the way it is. Okay. And I know it's kind of initially alarming, but that's just how it goes. Right. And so our thing really is, we've got about 19 gigatons of annual carbon emissions to make up in terms of the gap, what the reduction that's got to happen. And we've got a campaign to get about 500 million people to not only take action that's going to support that happening, but to take responsibility and not have this thing be something that's left up to somebody else, like the government or the scientists or industry or the billionaires or whatever it is that people kind of tend to walk around thinking somebody else is handling it. So that's kind of our thing.
Okay, so first question is, when you say we need 500 million people who need to take responsibility, I'm assuming you're talking about in the developed world.
Yes, absolutely. We were talking about people that actually have a footprint to reduce.
Right. Okay. So it's not somebody in some foreign land. It's you.
No.
Me.
Yeah, it's it's the United States, India, China, the big ones, right?
People
Yes.
with internet access who maybe
Yes.
So,
Absolutely. Yes.
all right. So we're talking to you. Okay. So you mentioned 19 gigatons of emissions that
Yeah.
needs to be reduced.
Yeah.
What the hell does that relate to? Can you?
Okay, so this might be a little bit out of order what we're looking, but on the website when you go to
you want me to do that now?
there's a chart.
Right.
There's a graph there.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen.
Right.
Okay. Will not display notifications while you're sharing. Okay, good to know. All right, so that did not happen. Share screen. Let me try this again. Your browser has blocked your screen. Click on the screen icon in your address bar to reload the page again. I'm afraid to do that. Can you try? Do you have?
I don't know if I'm.
I think you have
if screen sharing is capable, but let's give it a shot. How about it? Huh?
I'm sorry. We should have. It didn't even occur
No
to me.
problem.
Yeah.
No problem.
I'm driving the.
I know. If you go down, we all go down, right?
So if you
all right. So let's see. Here let's try this now. Okay. So I've got that. I'm going to do this. Share screen. Okay. Share screen. And where is the screen that I want to share? Oh, here, I think it'll be here. There we go. Okay, you see that?
Okay, I do. Now I have to just give it permission to add the string. Okay, there we go. All right, fantastic. Yay, it's working.
We're good?
For your patience, people.
No problem. No problem.
Yeah.
No problem. Okay. So in particular, in the matter of the gap, right, is that hopefully this will work. Okay, can you see that?
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So this is, again, we want to make this very, very simple, but still scientifically accurate. So this is a graph that the UN put out. Okay. And so you can see, you can see down below the date.
Good. That's helpful. Yep. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So what this is tracking is the billion tons or gigatons of CO2 emissions, right? So here we are at 2020. This is where we're headed on the blue line. And this is where we're headed if things go well. All right. So this isn't the worst case. It's not the best case, kind of the median case. But if we continue to progress the way we're progressing, we're going to end up here right around somewhere around, 59, something like that, gigatons. Okay. This down here, see the game for us is to get to zero carbon before we use up our carbon budget.
Right. Okay.
All right. And how that translates is that we've warmed about 1.1, 1.2 degrees hotter than we were since the Industrial Revolution. That's Celsius.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
And then with the carbon that's already in the atmosphere that stays there for hundreds of years, we're going to predictably warm at least another 0.2 degrees. So right now we're at about 1.4 degrees warming above where we were before the Industrial Revolution.
Okay, and for those of us who are American and don't understand Celsius, can you convert that to Fahrenheit?
I really should, and I don't.
Okay. Maybe somebody watching could do that and type a comment and say that's approximately this many degrees. Fahrenheit. Okay. If you're watching live, please help a sister out.
Okay, good. Yeah, I work in the scientists all work in Celsius, so I've just come to work. Yeah,
we should too, but we're not. When I was in middle school, I was told we're converting to metric, and that's never happened. So,
all right, good.
40 something.
Yeah, so you can see, and there's a kind of a consensus that if we can keep our warming to a maximum of 2 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial levels, we've got a shot at a sustainable future. Now we're already at 1.4, 1.2, somewhere around there, and you can see everything that's already happening with the horrific weather that's happening in Texas and the hurricanes and the wildfires. And I mean, there's plenty of stuff already happening. But what we're saying is that within that kind of, to keep it out of what my friend at the UN calls science fiction time, is we got about a 0.6 degree window left to play in.
Okay, got it.
All right. Which means we've got to start reducing our emissions if we're going to have any shot at getting down here by 2030, which is where we need to be. And the difference between where we're headed and where we need to be is about 19 gigatons. Okay. Now, with the 500 million people getting on board and taking actions that anybody can take, like reducing their meat intake, or taking the train instead of driving their car, or simple things that anybody. And then there's people, of course, that they're going to buy a Tesla, which is great, or put solar panels on, but most people don't have that kind of resources. So that's why we're organized around things that anybody can do.
That's awesome. I love it. Love it. Love
it.
Right.
Right. So we can make up somewhere between like 25% and 30% of that gap, which is critical. Okay. Now, in the meantime, there's other people working on other things other than individual action in terms of science and all that stuff, and all kinds of breakthroughs could happen. But our thing is that when an individual kind of makes that step from this is somebody else's problem or this is somebody else's situation to this is mine, they get a lot more power to start to express themselves in a way that actually makes a difference in the situation.
Yeah.
Right? So that the hamburger I'm not going to eat today, rather than it being some sacrifice, it's actually an expression of I make a difference in this situation and this is what I'm doing today.
I loved how you said, if you're on the planet. It's everybody. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Great. So, actually, do you mind going back to the webpage? Because I wanted to look at your 5 points, which,
sure.
When I first so I got introduced to Laughlin by Raheem Nelson, who is a friend of known, and he was actually on one of my earlier episodes of this show. And he's an African-American artist, and he actually did some, demos of his art and all that sort of thing. And when I was introduced to you and your organization, I looked you up and I was like, oh my God, this website is brilliant. Because it's like, first of all, it's you. It's not somebody else. Like we were talking before the show came on. It's not your mom is not coming to save the planet. It's you, and we're talking to you. And if you think we're not talking to you, you are the exact person that we're talking to. And I like that was the message I got from your website. And also it was 5 concrete things. Like people can handle, do this, do that, do this, do that. They can't handle, we have to get rid of 19 gigatons. What the hell does that mean? And how do I do that? So I really love the website. But actually, before you go to the website, can you translate in some manner that we can relate to 19 gigatons? Like, is it X number of cars driving for X number of years or something like that? Do you have any other like relatable way that we can wrap our minds around what the quantity of 19 gigatons of emissions is?
No. Okay.
It's a lot. Okay. It's a lot. We got that. It's a shitload. It's bigger than a shitload.
It's like shitload squared. Okay. If you're like a math person, okay.
Okay. All right. So do you mind bringing the website
No,
back?
no, not at all. Not at all. Let's do that.
And I think that like we a lot of the people in our community are entrepreneurs. And I think in addition to the fact that you have this message about climate change, the way you're doing your messaging, in my opinion, is brilliant.
Okay, good.
Because you're like, okay, who needs to hear this? Everyday people. So what did you say to me? You said, if you're on the planet. That's if you're watching, And
the other thing about that, is that we don't have any judgment about this. Okay. So
Right.
it's not about the green people or the not green people or the
Right.
Republicans or the It's like the climate doesn't care.
Right.
Okay.
No shit.
It's completely, it doesn't have any ideology. It does, it's just, the glacier's melting and that doesn't have any right. And the action that gets taken is simply the action that needs to get taken. Right. And that's what matters, is action, not debating, not agreeing, not arguing, not just action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I have to say, I absolutely love that you started out with the truth as it is for you. And the first one was, I try not to think about it, because now you've captured my attention. I mean, I'm not someone who tries not to think about it. I do think about it. It's not like, I would say, of all the social issues in the world, racism is the one that is strict, strikes my heart the most, always has. Yes. And I know there's a huge tie between racism and environmental, justice and all that sort of thing. But that I try to think about it, makes it accessible for people, because they're like, oh, that's me. Oh, I have bigger problems right now. Oh my God, that's me. So it makes me feel like, oh, you are talking to me. Yeah. I think it's brilliant messaging. Love it.
And it's kind of a process that people go through, because it isn't just do this, right? Mm-hmm. So, that our whole thing is to empower people. Mm-hmm. And it's not that information isn't important, it is, but information doesn't in and of itself empower you. Right. So because, you go to all these documentaries where everything's, the planet's going to hell in a handbasket and everything's on fire and the polar bears and everything like that. And you leave and it's like, oh my God, right. I'm so upset now. But if I don't have something to do that's going to make a difference, it's almost better if I wouldn't have seen it, right?
Right. So I'm stressed out, and I'm probably going to go eat something that's going to contribute.
Yeah. So
as opposed to a call to action that's concrete.
Yeah. And so we want to meet people where they are, and so if we just kind of let people say how it is for them, because whatever reality, the way we talk about it, whatever reality people are living in the matter of climate change, that's what's determining their action. Mm-hmm. And most people, or a lot of people, I should say, are living in some version of there's not much I as an individual can do.
Right, I agree.
And when there's not much I can do, then you're pretty much left with recycling and hoping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is just whatever the truth is, the way that it is for you. It's not good, bad, right, or anything like that. But that's where we start, because people it just kind of isn't apparent to them, and people really do walk around in this like it's the way that it is. And if you go through every single bullet that we've got, and the ones that we don't have, what you'll see is none of them are accurate.
Right.
Okay. So then it kind of moves us to this part called the myths that we live in.
Yeah. And this is another brilliant piece of messaging here, because what you're doing is also messaging people in a way that they're like, oh, that's what I think. I think it's too big and too complex for me. Oh, I think the government is handling. Yeah. Oh, I think the Paris Agreement. I think blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
so you're like, oh, it's me. Like you keep pulling the people in with the messaging. So
when we first started this, and I first started going to the conferences and talking to people, and when I told them we wanted to build a model that would give an ordinary person an access to doing something to end the crisis, I was told by the experts, you can't talk about ending it because it's too complex. And I thought, well,
that's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous. I mean, if your doctor tells you you're going to die, but I can't treat you because it's too complex, you don't go home and die. You get another doctor, right? I mean, it's as complex as it is.
Right. Yeah, it's too complex. We're going to die. Yeah.
Right. The government is handling it, which is not accurate. The Paris Agreement fixed it, which is not accurate, which is a big eye opener for me when I found out that the Paris Agreement is not designed to end it. And it doesn't take away from the power of the agreement, but that's not the point. We can get to it later. It's not that big a deal. Or if we just do our best, it will just turn out. Yeah. And those are, and what we find is that and when people start to see, wow, this really is, kind of the water that I'm swimming in. I wonder if this is actually accurate or not.
Yeah.
So that's kind of then when we go to the next piece, which is because what if you're going to deal with ending anything, and this in what we're dealing with here is a climate crisis, you have to know where we're headed. You have to know where we need to be. You have to know the gap between where we're headed and where we need to be and what to do to bridge the gap.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have those 4 steps,
Mm-hmm.
you can't work on ending it. You're
Right.
kind of shooting in the dark.
So this is like social justice 101 right here. That's
yes.
Where are we headed? Where do we need
Yes.
to be? What's the gap between? And what can you do?
Exactly.
Like anybody that's working on any social issue, like like hone your message down to that right there.
Yep,
and so
absolutely.
just to make sure that people watching understand this show me link that we're going over, that's the graph that you showed us a few minutes ago. So
it is. Yes.
That graph, you get there by this show me link.
Yeah,
There's more on the page.
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay.
Okay.
And then the next piece, which is critical, is that this is where you actually take a stand in the matter called, okay, this is mine. It doesn't blame anybody. It doesn't, you kind of have to, it requires giving up whatever story you've had or whatever justification you've had or reason you've had about why you haven't had any power.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's the one problem with getting empowered is that then you have to do something.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have any power, then you can just blame everybody and hopefully it'll turn out right. So that's why we say you take the stand that the climate crisis and the ending of it is your business and that it's up to you. And we're offering actions that you can take, and we do have models. But look, if somebody gets involved with us and says, you know what, I'm taking my stand here, this is my thing, and you know what, I want to work in the oceans. Okay, well, great, go work in the oceans. I want to work here. I want to, it's like awesome, like whatever it is. Great. Okay. We're not here to tell you what the right thing or the wrong thing is. And we've got recommendations. Mm-hmm. But the point is that, and that's what we found, Barb, every single time is that when somebody kind of discovers their own power, it's a natural step then to get into action. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. So then we've got, you get started. We have a newsletter. If you sign up with your email address, stay updated, get connected. We also have the 2030 or Bust app that you download the app, and then it gives you actions you can take, and it tracks your footprint and tracks the collective footprint of everybody else that's on the app, kind of against the global game for 2030. So that, that's the deal.
Awesome. Fantastic. Love it. Love it. Love it. So, speaking of concrete actions, what are some of maybe, I don't know, top 3 to 5 actions that regular everyday people can make? You've alluded to recycling and eating. For I don't like to call ordinary pro. I don't mean it's anything diminishing about that, but for the regular Joe like me, right, or Joanne, or right, that the biggest action that you can take that makes the biggest difference is to reduce your beef intake. Okay, and we're not saying everybody has to go vegan, but when you realize the knock-on effect of what happens in eating meat. Most of the forest land in the world is destroyed for for industrial farming. Okay. So it's raising food to feed cattle that are killed so that we can eat them. Right. So when you say reduce your beef intake, I've heard people talk about like meatless Mondays or something like that.
Sure. Yeah.
So even friggin' one meal a week will matter. More would be better.
Yes.
But if you're a diehard, I eat beef 7 days a week person, then most people don't eat beef 7 days a week. But if you can cut down to 6 days.
You can cut down. You can cut down. Right. I think, and again, kind of one of these comparisons. If you've got kind of the average, this is just for America, the American family. If every family just once a week substituted their meat-based meal with a plant-based meal, it would be like taking 500,000 cars off the road.
Wow.
So it's and that your quarter pounder, that thing takes 600 gallons of water to produce.
Wow.
In terms of the farming and all of that. So it's the other thing that I think is great about, of course, and I'm partial to our campaign, right? But one of the other kind of myths that a lot of us live in, and I've certainly, can count myself among them, right? Is that what I do doesn't much affect you. So I hear about these wildfires in California, for example. I go, oh boy, well, thank goodness I don't live in California, right? And then the stuff in Texas, well, thank good about that. And, and so when you start to get a sense of, man, something about this hamburger actually affects the rainforest in the Amazon. Mm-hmm. And I can really see that there is a connection, not to make one up or to, but that there really is a connection. All of my actions, or at least some of my actions, become global for me.
Right.
That it's something about the human community that I'm intrinsically a part of. The Martin Luther King talked about, we're all in the same fabric of life. There are threads within the fabric that we just think it's a great way to go about your day. That the choices that I make, that this, like the simple stuff, I always, and you just think about things like when you say, okay, I wanted to stop plastic. Mm-hmm. Well, when you say something like that, all of a sudden, my gosh, that's all you see is my house is full of plastic, right? And just little stuff like the dispensers, like soap dispensers for hand soap, right? So I found a place, Whole Foods, whatever, give a plug for them, I guess, that they have these companies that put them in metal containers, right? Mm-hmm. So, because the other thing, just in terms of educating people think, well, if I use plastic, it's okay because I recycle it. Well, only 9% of plastic gets recycled, including what people put in recycling bins. Because there's just flat out not enough resources to get it recycled.
Okay.
Right? So it sits in barges, outside of China because they stopped taking ours. You don't need to know all of it, right? But it's like, whoa, like, isn't that something? Yeah. And but anyway, back to long answer to your question, right? Is that the meat, absolutely, all right. And then the other thing, now the pandemic. Nothing, I don't want to make it that there's anything good, but it was great at reducing emissions.
Right. Yes.
Right. And especially kind of the whole business of the reduction in flying was amazing. Mm-hmm. The emissions dropped by about 17%, and they're expected to go back up because, once we get back to normal, then, okay, it's over. Right. Mm-hmm. So, but certainly anything you can do in terms of reducing your flying makes a huge difference because flight is just horrific in terms of the emissions.
Okay.
Right.
Reduce flights. Okay.
Yeah, and then it's anything, because again, we want to have it be something that's available to anybody. Your consumables, to start to think about, kind of, it's a weird way to say it, I think, but how much processing had to go on to get what you're buying, and how much processing has to take place to get it back to where it's something that the earth can use.
Mm-hmm. So when you're talking consumables, give us examples. I mean, immediately I think of processed foods, for example.
Processed food. No, processed foods. Absolutely. Same thing in terms of plastic. One of the things that kind of kicked us in the butt a bit in the pandemic is all the takeout. This takeout just soared, right? And so stuff like that, if you've got a place, and I've done this, if you've got a place that delivers takeout or something, ask them to stop using plastic. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right? So anywhere you can get things switched from doesn't return to nature to does return to nature makes a huge difference. Okay. And most people I've found have been open to it. I've got a thing now, who knows how it's going to go, right? But if you go to McDonald's right now with your own cup, they won't put their coffee in your cup. They put it in their cup, and then you
right,
which is quite insane, right? but they have this policy about safety or whatever like that. So, it's like a great, something to get on board about, because the huge difference that would make, that all of a sudden, like that, right? And I know that there's certainly you're familiar with in terms of the plastic straws, right? Because the plastic straws end up in the sea turtles, and there's soon going to be more plastic bottles in the ocean than there are fish. It's unbelievable. Okay, truckloads after truckload after truckload of plastic gets dumped in the ocean every day.
Right. Yeah. I remember I was at a parade in Provincetown a couple summers ago, and there was a float that said, "It's only one straw," said 8 billion people. And that was like, oh my God.
That's awesome. That's great. That's so great. Yeah, like, that's awesome.
That was like, avoiding that. And I've had silicone straws for a long time. That's what I like.
No, that's great. That's great.
Because I can put them in the dishwasher and reuse them.
Yes. See, let's just take one day, okay? Because we have this thing called the power of 500 million. If on one day, 500 million people who were going to have a hamburger didn't have a hamburger, okay? On one day, 500 million said, nope, we're going to change that. I'm going to, have a salad or a veggie burger. Yeah. Right. Okay. That 500 million people, we would save enough forestry as would be 3 times all the boroughs in New York City.
Wow.
In one day.
Wow.
So we want people to become aware of the impact their actions really do have.
Right. Yeah. So if we had Meatless Mondays across the nation, man,
would be awesome. It would be awesome.
That would be really good.
And the stuff they have now is, it tastes great and everything. I mean, back in the day when I was, it was like, it was not so great, right? But
yeah. So I just thought of like your next, like, I don't know who the exact organization is, but your next partner organization that you partner with is somebody who starts promoting Meatless Mondays, like on a grand scale.
Yes.
Do it for the goal of this. Yes. What it is for the environment. So we just got so maybe somebody out there.
I love that. Yes. Yeah. And the other thing is, if we had a sponsor like that, which we would love to have a sponsor like that. All right. Is that we could tailor the app specifically. We could give them their version of the app.
Wow.
So you could even have something in it. Like once you've taken this many actions, you get half off your next veggie burger.
Yeah. The other thing that occurred to me when you were talking about the McDonald's thing, like if anybody, like if you work for the McDonald's Corporation and you can have any kind of influence on their policy, please do that. Okay. Yeah. But even if you don't work for the McDonald's Corporation and you don't work for one of these organizations, one of the things that I learned, so I'm a sociologist by training. And so I look at social structures and social patterns. And so we look at things at the micro and the macro level. It's at the micro level where we weaken and disrupt patterns. So me as an individual, maybe I feel like I can't do something, but if I have a job in an organization where my voice can be heard, then I can say, I'm in a board meeting, I can say, listen, we have got to start paying attention to the environment. But if I don't ever, as my individual person, do something, make an effort to weaken and disrupt,
that's right.
Patterns not going to happen. So,
absolutely.
Right. And so it's not just what do I do in my own home and how I operate my life, but where are the places that my voice can be heard?
Yes.
And where can I magnify my voice? So if you're in a position of power somewhere where you can have an influence on policy and practices of a larger organization, that's how you magnify and amplify the messages that you care about.
Wow, beautiful. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, because we got
about 5 minutes left. I just want to let you know. This is awesome. I mean, I'm absolutely
No. It was our core thing is that this is the decade. This is our make it or break it decade. We have the opportunity, right, to be alive at this time, which is literally going to determine the future of all of us and our kids and grandchildren and everything after that.
Okay.
And so it's, it really is up to us.
Okay. Well, I have a ton of notes here because I want to, like, I always send out the replay and I try to say, like, what were the highlights? And I'm like, I got like a full page of highlights. So I'm gonna have to send out a few different messages. But so I got from you in terms of like the number one thing that people can do is reduce their beef intake. The number
Yes.
two is reduce their flying. Pay attention to your consumables and how much processing had to go into them to get them to me, and then what kind of processing has to happen to get them.
Yeah. If it ends up in a landfill, it is not good. If it ends
Right.
up in the ocean, it is not. It's just not.
And
If
the
you
other
look,
thing,
yeah.
go
No,
ahead.
that's no.
So the other thing that I loved that you said was getting empowered. Getting empowered means that you now have to do something, whereas if you're not empowered, you blame. And I think that is so true in so many realms. I can't even remember if I've told you this or not, but I'm in a couple of 12-step recovery programs, and a lot of what happens in 12-step recovery is we start to understand that we've been blaming people our whole lives. That's called victim mentality. Even though, like, I knew that I could rescue a victim. I knew a victim a mile away because I rescued them, but I didn't understand that I had victim mentality. That one shift right there changed everything for me. Because I realized, this may seem dumb, but it's a really good example. I realized I was blaming traffic for pissing me off because I had this idea that there shouldn't be traffic.
Yeah.
Or at least driving,
no,
right?
That's a great example.
Were made for Barb, but now that I understand, I have to take some responsibility. So one of the reasons I would get upset was because I would leave late and then everybody was in my way.
Sure.
So now my responsibility is that I leave with plenty of padding time.
How about that? That's awesome. That's such a great example.
Yeah, I mean, this idea of getting empowered means you have to do something. Like, I'm going to take that with me in a lot of different realms. I absolutely love that. I think that's true here. It's like, okay, now that you have the facts and you understand we're actually talking to you, not the person next to you and not your mother, brother, sister, cousin, whatever.
Yes.
We're talking to you and you've got information. Now it's time to take action.
Yeah.
I think that's a message. Is there anything else that you'd like to wrap up?
No, I just I appreciate the opportunity to be with you, Barb, and I really appreciate your work. I think it's down to earth. It's it's for everybody. Just really thank you.
Okay, well, if you don't mind, I'd like to take you off the air, but have you stick around for a couple minutes because I just want to wrap up, but I'd love to chat with you.
Oh, and also, I know it's been running around there, but all of our Twitter, everything, Instagram, it's all at 2030 or bust. So we love to hear from you. Our website, find out about us, download our app. Thank you.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much, Laughlin.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. And I just really want to thank Laughlin. I thought that was fantastic. I probably could have gone on for another half an hour or so. I do want to remind you, we'll be back here tomorrow with Latrice and Brenda from the New Haven Financial Empowerment Center. And they are going to be on air with me at 4 o'clock tomorrow. And then next Tuesday, Julia at 8:30 a.m. on Digital Media Sync. She's going to be having Randy Spina on again. She's the marketing lady and has all kinds of brilliant information about marketing. So don't forget to leave comments, even if you're watching the recording. We will get those comments to Laughlin if they need to. And definitely follow his organization, 2030 or Bust, at 2030 or Bust on any social media outlet. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great afternoon.